The plasma cannon fire streaked across the amber sky of Kepler 442b like fallen stars, each burst illuminating the crystalline mining structures that dotted the planet's surface. Commander Kalafax stood on the bridge of his dreadnought, the Crimson Talon, his 6-foot frame rigid with battle-worn discipline. His gray-scaled skin bore the ritual scars of 100 victories, each mark a testament to the Dominion's relentless expansion across the galaxy. "Status report on the human settlement," he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had never known defeat. The bridge crew, their reptilian features focused and efficient, responded with mechanical precision. Colony population, 12,000. Defensive capabilities, minimal. Estimated time to complete pacification, 4 hours, Commander. Kalafax nodded, his amber eyes scanning the tactical display. These humans were like all the others, fragile, emotional, clinging to their pathetic ideals of peace and cooperation. He had eliminated 17 human colonies in the past decade, each one falling with predictable ease. They fought with desperation, rather than discipline, hampered by their irrational desire to protect their weak instead of sacrificing them for strategic advantage. The irony wasn't lost on him that this mining world had been humanity's attempt at peaceful coexistence. They had come here not as conquerors, but as industrious gatherers, extracting rare minerals to fuel their expanding civilization. Such naivety deserved the crushing response it would receive. "Begin the bombardment sequence," Kalafax ordered, his clawed hands clasped behind his back. "Focus on the population centers first. Leave the mining equipment intact. The Dominion will have use for it." The dreadnought's massive guns began, their deadly symphony, raining destruction upon the settlements below. Kalafax watched with professional detachment as the human defenders scrambled their pathetic fleet of cargo ships retrofitted with mining lasers. It was like watching insects challenging a storm. But something went wrong in the ship's reactor core. The quantum containment field that powered the Crimson Talon began fluctuating wildly, sending shockwaves through the massive vessel. Warning klaxons blared across the bridge as systems failed in cascading sequence. Kalafax barked orders, trying to maintain control, but the ship's artificial intelligence delivered the verdict he dreaded: catastrophic reactor breach imminent. The explosion tore the dreadnought apart from within, a miniature star born and dying in a span of heartbeats. Kalafax felt the deck plates buckle beneath his feet as he was thrown toward the emergency pods. His last coherent thought before unconsciousness claimed him was a warrior's prayer to die with honor rather than shame. He awakened to pain that felt like molten metal coursing through his veins. His left arm was bent at an impossible angle, ribs were definitely broken, and every breath brought the taste of his own blood. The emergency pod had crashed in what appeared to be a forest of Earth-like trees, their unfamiliar purple leaves filtering the alien sunlight into dappled patterns across his broken form. Kalafax tried to activate his distress beacon, but the control panel sparked and died under his touch. His armor's life support system was failing, the recycled air growing thin and acrid. Around him, the forest seemed to pulse with the quiet. Sounds of an alien world, chittering insects, distant bird calls, the rustle of wind through unknown vegetation. For the first time in his career, Commander Kalafax faced something he had never encountered: helplessness. He was alone, injured, and stranded on a hostile world with no way to contact his fleet. The proud warrior who had conquered worlds was reduced to a broken creature bleeding in the dirt, waiting for death to claim him. But death, it seemed, would have to wait. Asterisk, the sound of approaching footsteps broke through Kalafax's fevered consciousness like thunder. His warrior instincts, honed by decades of combat, screamed warnings, even as his broken body failed to respond. He managed to turn his head slightly, expecting to see human soldiers come to claim their prize, the legendary Dominion commander who who had slaughtered thousands of their kind. Instead, he saw a single figure emerge from the purple-leafed undergrowth. A human female, small even by their species standards, carrying what appeared to be medical equipment. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical style, and her olive-skinned face showed the focused concentration of someone accustomed to emergency situations. She wore the simple blue uniform of a civilian medic, not the military gear he had expected. "Jesus Christ," she muttered, kneeling beside his broken form. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, checking his pulse, examining his wounds. Her touch surprisingly gentle, despite the obvious recognition in her eyes. "You're that Dominion commander. Kelfax. I've seen your face in the intelligence briefings." Kelfax tried to speak, but only managed a pained wheeze. His voice, when it finally came, was barely a whisper. "Come. To finish what? Your weapons could not?" The human her name tag read S. Martinez paused in her examination. For a moment, something dark flickered across her features, a pain that seemed to echo his own. "My brother died at New Geneva," she said quietly. "He was a mining engineer, 17 years old. You killed him along with 40,000 others." Kelfax waited for the blade, the weapon, the righteous vengeance that any Dominion warrior would have delivered without hesitation. Instead, the human resumed her medical assessment, her movements becoming more urgent as she recognized the severity of his condition. Internal bleeding, multiple fractures, possible organ damage. She spoke into a communication device. "I need an immediate medical evac at coordinates Lima 77, and prepare trauma bay for a non-human patient. Sarah, what the hell are you doing?" The voice crackled back through the cone. "That's the alien who destroyed the outer colonies. Let the bastard die." "Not happening, Torres. Send the evac now." Her voice carried an authority that brooked no argument. She turned back to Kelfax, pulling medical supplies from her pack. "I'm going to give you something for the pain. Try to stay still." The injection brought blessed relief, but also confusion. Kelfax had studied human psychology as part of his military training. They were supposed to be driven by emotion, by revenge, by the same tribal instincts that motivated most species. Yet this Sarah Martinez was treating him with the same care she would show her own kind. "Why?" he managed to ask, his voice stronger now. "Your brother, your people." Sarah's hands stilled for a moment. When she looked at him, her brown eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Because you're hurt, and because my brother would never forgive me if I let someone die when I could save them." She resumed her work, cleaning and dressing his wounds with methodical precision. David always said that the moment we stop helping people in need, we stop being human. The medical evac arrived within minutes, a sleek human transport that hovered silently above the treetops. As they loaded him onto the stretcher, Kelfax caught sight of Sarah's face. She was crying, but her hands never stopped working, never stopped fighting to keep him alive. During the flight to the human medical facility, Kelfax found himself studying this enemy who had become his savior. Sarah Martinez monitored his vital signs, adjusted his pain medication, and spoke to him in calm, reassuring tones. She explained each procedure, asked about his comfort level, and even tried to keep him conscious during moments when his alien physiology showed signs of shutting down. "Stay with me," she said during one particularly difficult moment when his breathing became labored. "I know your people are tough. You can fight through this." The medical facility buzzed with activity as they arrived. Kelfax glimpsed human medical personnel preparing for his arrival, their faces showing professional concern rather than the hatred he had expected. Some looked uncomfortable, others openly hostile, but they all moved with the same purpose: to save his life. As they wheeled him into the operating theater, Kelfax found himself facing a truth that challenged everything he believed about strength, about honor, about the nature of warfare itself. The humans he had dismissed as weak were demonstrating a form of power he had never encountered, the strength to save those who would destroy them. Asterisk. The human medical facility was unlike anything Halifax had ever experienced. Where Dominion. Hospitals were sterile, efficient places focused solely on returning warriors to combat readiness. This place hummed with something he couldn't identify at first. It took him 3 days of observation to realize what it was. Hope thought his room was private, equipped with monitors that tracked his alien physiology with surprising accuracy. The humans had clearly studied his species, but instead of using that knowledge to create more effective weapons, they had applied it to healing. Dr. Elizabeth Chun, the facility's chief surgeon, had spent 18 hours reconstructing his shattered ribs and repairing internal damage that would have killed him within hours. ****. Your species has remarkable regenerative capabilities, she explained during one of her visits, reviewing his charts with professional enthusiasm. Your bone density is nearly 3 times that of humans, and your cardiovascular system has redundancies we can only dream of. Fascinating from a medical perspective. Halifax studied her with growing confusion. You speak as if you ... admire us. Yet I have killed thousands of your kind. Dr. Chun's expression grew somber. I admire the biological engineering. The actions are another matter entirely. She set down his chart and met his gaze directly. But my job isn't to judge you. It's to heal you. That's what we do here. The true test of human nature came when the colony's governing council convened to discuss his fate. Halifax could hear the heated debates echoing through the facility's corridors, voices demanding execution, others calling for imprisonment, a few arguing for his use as a bargaining chip with the Dominion. Through it all, Sarah Martinez remained his constant advocate. He's a patient under our care, she argued during one particularly heated session that Halifax overheard. We don't abandon our patients, regardless of who they are or what they've done. That monster killed my daughter. The voice belonged to an older man, heavy with grief and rage. He destroyed entire settlements. You want us to save him so he can kill more of us. I want us to save him because that's who we are, Sarah replied. The moment we start picking and choosing who deserves medical care based on our feelings, we've lost something essential about our humanity. What truly shattered Halifax's worldview was learning about Sarah's sacrifice. During his recovery, he discovered that his species' blood was compatible with human physiology, a cosmic coincidence that had enabled cross-species transfusions. Sarah had donated her own blood 3 times to support his recovery, weakening herself to strengthen her enemy. You gave your life force to save me, he said when she came to check on him after her latest donation. Her skin looked pale, and she moved with the careful precision of someone fighting exhaustion. It's just blood, she said, but her voice carried a weariness that spoke of deeper costs. I'll make more. In the Dominion, we would call this the ultimate weakness. To strengthen your enemy at the cost of your own strength is considered the act of a fool. Sarah sat down in the chair beside his bed, her movements careful and deliberate. Maybe, but David always said that strength isn't about being able to hurt people. It's about being able to help them, even when it's hard. Your brother again. He was studying to be a doctor. Like me, she smiled sadly. He wanted to work in interspecies medicine. Thought maybe if different species could understand each other's biology, we could find common ground. Her expression hardened. Then your forces arrived at New Geneva. Halifax felt something he had never experienced before, not just regret, but a profound shame that seemed to hollow out his chest. I remember that world. The humans there. They sent surrender broadcasts. They offered to share their mining technology, their medical knowledge. David was part of that research team. He genuinely believed that cooperation was possible. Sarah's Voice grew quiet. He was excited about the possibility of meeting other species. Right up until the bombardment started. The weight of that revelation settled over Koufax like a physical burden. He had destroyed not just lives, but possibilities. The humans at New Geneva hadn't been plotting resistance. They had been planning cooperation. And now one of their number was saving his life, giving her own blood to heal the wounds of the warrior who had killed her brother. "Why tell me this?" he asked. "Because you need to understand what you destroyed. And because ... She paused, struggling with words. "Because I need to understand it too. I need to know that David's dream wasn't completely naive. That maybe, somehow, this can mean something." That night, Koufax lay awake, staring at the ceiling, his mind wrestling with concepts that challenged everything he had been taught about strength, honor, and the nature of victory. The humans weren't saving him despite their grief. They were saving him because they're fundamental. Nature wouldn't allow them to do otherwise. For the first time in his life, the legendary commander of the Dominion's finest forces began to question whether his people's definition of strength might actually be a form of weakness. Asterisk. The arrival of the Dominion rescue fleet changed everything. Koufax watched from his medical bay window as the massive vessels descended through Kepler 442b's atmosphere like metallic storms, their weapon systems powered but not yet firing. 3 dreadnoughts and a carrier enough firepower to reduce the entire planet to radioactive ash. "They're here for you," Sarah said, standing beside his bed. Her voice carried a mixture of relief and something else, fear, perhaps, or sadness. "The colony's leadership has agreed to transfer you to Dominion custody. They don't want a war over one wounded prisoner." Koufax nodded, expecting to feel the satisfaction of rescue, of returning to his people and his purpose. Instead, he felt hollow. The warrior who had served the Dominion for 30 years found himself reluctant to leave the place where his enemies had saved his life. "They will execute the medical staff," he said quietly. "Standard protocol when dealing with enemy combatants who have seen too much." Sarah's face paled, but her voice remained steady. "Dr. Chun knew the risks when she operated on you. We all did. Yet you saved me anyway." Yes, the simplicity of that answer carried more weight than any military stratagem Koufax had ever studied. These humans had chosen to save him, knowing it might cost them their lives. In the Dominion, such an act would be considered not just foolish, but treasonous. Admiral Vextar, Koufax's second-in-command, arrived with a full honor guard to escort him home. The Admiral's scarred features showed relief mixed with barely contained disgust as he surveyed the human medical facility. "Commander, we feared you had been captured and tortured," Vextar said, his claws clicking against his weapon harness. "The human's reputation for cruelty is well documented." Koufax looked around the room that had been his home for 2 weeks. The walls were decorated with artwork images of Earth's landscapes, family photographs, children's drawings. Dr. Chun had explained that they believed familiar, beautiful images aided in healing. So different from the stark efficiency of Dominion medical facilities. "I was not tortured," he said carefully. "I was treated?" Vextar's amber eyes narrowed. "Commander, you are speaking strangely. Perhaps the humans have used some form of mental conditioning." "No." Koufax's voice carried enough authority to silence his subordinate. "I am speaking clearly, perhaps more clearly than I have in years." The transfer ceremony was held in the facility's main lobby, with representatives from both species present. Koufax wore his restored armor, the battle-scarred plates polished to their former gleam. He looked every inch the legendary commander, who had conquered worlds, but inside, he felt fundamentally changed. Sarah stood with the human delegation, her face composed but her eyes betraying the grief she felt. Not for him, he realized, but for what his departure might mean for her people. The Dominion rarely left witnesses to their methods. Commander Calfax, the colony's governor, began formally. By order of the Kepler 442b Colonial Council, you are hereby released to the custody of the Dominion of Ash. In accordance with, I refuse transfer, Calfax interrupted, his voice carrying across the silent lobby like a THUNDERCLAP. The silence that followed was deafening. Admiral Vextar's hand moved instinctively to his weapon, while the human delegation exchanged bewildered glances. Sarah's eyes widened in shock. Commander, Vextar said slowly, you are not well. The humans have clearly... I am well enough to know the difference between strength and weakness. Calfax stepped forward, addressing both delegations with the authority of a lifetime warrior. I have spent 30 years serving the Dominion, believing that true strength lay in the ability to crush our enemies. I was wrong. He turned to face Sarah, seeing his own reflection in her wide eyes. I have witnessed true strength in this place. It is not the power to destroy, but the power to heal. Not the ability to take life, but the wisdom to preserve it, even when that life belongs to your enemy. You're talking about surrender, Vextar snarled. About betraying everything you've sworn to uphold. I am talking about evolution, Calfax replied. About learning from those we have wronged. He looked back at the human delegation. I formally request asylum from the Kepler 442b Colonial Council. I offer myself as a prisoner of war to be tried for my crimes against your people. The lobby erupted in chaos. Dominion soldiers raised their weapons while human security forces tensed for battle. Only Sarah's voice cut through the confusion. Wait. She stepped forward, placing herself between the two armed groups. Commander, you don't understand what you're asking. We don't have the military strength to protect you from your own people. Then I will protect myself, Calfax said. And I will protect you. He turned to Admiral Vextar. I challenge the fundamental premise of Dominion doctrine. Our strength has made us weak. Our victories have made us failures. These humans have shown me something our civilization lacks. Courage to be vulnerable, to help those who cannot help themselves. Admiral Vextar's expression shifted from confusion to rage. You would betray your own species for these ... creatures? I would save my species from becoming creatures ourselves, Calfax replied. Return to the Dominion. Tell them that their greatest commander has learned the meaning of true strength. Tell them that the humans are not our enemies. They are our teachers. The standoff stretched for long moments before Admiral Vextar finally lowered his weapon. You are no longer Dominion, he said with cold finality. You are exile, traitor. Your name will be struck from our records. So be it, Calfax said, but my actions will be remembered. Part 5. The Strength of Mercy 6 months after his defection. Calfax stood in the same medical facility that had saved his life, but now he wore the blue uniform of the Human Medical Corps. The transformation hadn't been easy learning. Human medical protocols, adapting to their collaborative approach, earning the trust of colleagues who had every reason to hate him. But Sarah Martinez had been there through every step, his advocate and eventually his partner in establishing the first interspecies medical research program. Patient in Trauma Bay 3, Dr. Chun announced as another emergency case arrived. Dominion soldier, multiple projectile wounds, critical condition. Calfax looked up from the research data. He was reviewing a breakthrough in cross-species organ transplantation that could revolutionize medicine for both humans and his former people. I'll take it, he said, moving toward the trauma bay. The wounded soldier was young, probably on his first campaign. His amber eyes widened in shock as he recognized the legendary commander who had become a traitor to his own kind. You ... You're the exile, the one who betrayed us. I'm the one who learned from you, Calfax replied, beginning his examination. "Hold still. You have significant internal bleeding. I would rather die than be treated by a traitor." "That's your choice," Kelfax said calmly, not pausing in his work. "But it's a choice you can make later. Right now, you're going to live." The soldier's resistance faded as the pain medication took effect. As Kelfax worked to save his life, he found himself thinking about the philosophical revolution his defection had triggered within the Dominion. Intelligence reports spoke of growing dissent among younger warriors, questioning the effectiveness of their brutal methods. Some had even begun referring to the Kelfax heresy, the dangerous idea that strength through mercy might be superior to strength through conquest. "The Dominion has put a bounty on your head," Sarah said later, as they reviewed the days. "Cases, 10 million credits for your capture or death." "I'm flattered," Kelfax replied, making notes on a patient's chart. "Though I suspect they're more interested in silencing my ideas than collecting revenge. Are you ever afraid?" "Of what you've given up?" Kelfax considered the question carefully. He had sacrificed everything: his rank, his people, his entire identity for principles he had learned from humans. "I fear what I was becoming more than what I have become," he said finally. "I fear the warrior who could destroy New Geneva without feeling the weight of 40,000 lives lost." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent communication from the colony's defense center. Admiral Vextar's fleet had returned, but this time they weren't alone. 3 other Dominion commanders had accompanied them, along with their ships and crews. "They're requesting permission to land," the defense coordinator reported. "They say they want to discuss terms." Kelfax and Sarah exchanged glances. The revolution had begun. The meeting took place in the same lobby where Kelfax had first declared his defection. Admiral Vextar looked older, his scarred features showing the strain of months of internal conflict within the Dominion. The other commanders flanked him, young officers who had served under Kelfax and had been influenced by his teachings. "You have caused considerable chaos," Vextar began without preamble. "The Dominion is ... divided. Some call for your execution as a traitor. Others question whether our methods have become counterproductive." "And what do you call for?" Kelfax asked. "Understanding," said Commander Zaraketh, one of the younger officers. "We've observed the results of your ... collaboration. The humans have shared medical technology, defensive innovations, even cultural exchanges. The worlds that have embraced cooperation show greater stability than those we've conquered through force." Sarah stepped forward, her voice carrying the confidence of someone who had learned to speak to former enemies. "The offer stands. Joint research, shared technology, mutual defense agreements. But the violence has to stop. Some among us believe this is possible," Vextar admitted reluctantly. "Your former protégé has been persuasive in his arguments, but there are others who view any cooperation as weakness." "Then prove them wrong," Kelfax said. "Show them that mercy is not weakness. It's the highest form of strength." The negotiations that followed would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. Not all of the Dominion accepted the new paradigm. Hardliners broke away to form smaller, more violent factions. But the majority, led by commanders who had witnessed the effectiveness of cooperation, began the slow process of transformation. Years later, as Kelfax stood in the Interspecies Medical Center that had grown from Sarah's original facility, he reflected on the journey that had brought him here. The center now served dozens of species, sharing medical knowledge and techniques that had saved millions of lives. Sarah worked beside him as co-director, their partnership a symbol of what was possible when former enemies chose understanding over vengeance. "Any regrets?" she asked one evening as they reviewed applications from young Dominion warriors seeking to join the medical corps. "Only that it took me so long to understand what your brother knew instinctively," Kelfax replied. "That the greatest victory isn't defeating your enemies, it's transforming them into allies. Outside the center's windows, ships from dozens of species came and went, carrying supplies, personnel, and most importantly, hope. The galaxy was still dangerous, still full of conflict, but there were now places where former enemies worked. Together, where the strength of mercy had proven more powerful than the weakness of hatred. The wounded alien warrior had found his salvation not in the honor of death, but in the courage to live differently. And in doing so, he had helped save not just himself, but the future of two civilizations. Asterisk.